In today's journey, Phil was left unsupervised and decided to make a lazy peach wine. It's a bit of a trial by fire situation, and we'll just see what happens. He starts by taking 2 pounds of corn sugar and adding it to as little water as he could. It turns out to be about 4 cups. Which is unfortunate, as he was hoping to use as little water as possible, which is why he attempted to preheat the water with the hot plate ahead of time. This is actually Phil's first time ever making a small batch of fruit wine, so he's definitely playing it by ear, and using this as a learning experience. But why he didn't just use the large beaker to pre-mix everything is beyond us. His objective here is to use as little water possible to create a sugar solution without making it super syrupy after it's been boiled for a little bit. Although Phil said that next time he might try using juice in place of water for this step. But this time he was worried that that might create off flavors. Don't know why that suddenly became an issue for him this time. Let's speed through some of this. With the sugar solution thoroughly mixed, we prepare a 2000 milliliter Erlenmeyer flask to be placed on the hot plate. The goal here is to boil the solution for at least 5 minutes, allowing for a simpler sugar solution for the yeast to eat later. An additional side benefit is that in the rare occurrence that a contaminant was on the sugar, we are given the opportunity to boil it to oblivion. It is at this point that Phil will also add the adjuncts to the solution as well. Unfortunately, he hasn't told me what they are yet, but has promised me that he will add them to the description as soon as this video is uploaded. But that's the problem with working with these creative types. They're always trying something new and never writing anything down. What's the point if you can make the greatest cider in the world if you can't remember what the damn recipe is? And there he goes, making a mess on the hot plate again. Although I suppose I shouldn't complain too much, as BVC is completely his idea. And up next was a move that baffled everyone, including him. For some reason, he decides to add the cup of chopped raisins into the vessel at this point. Which is extra funny, given the fact that the name is Lazy Peach Cider, and he is about to put a bunch of extra effort into putting these raisins into an Erlenmeyer flask, instead of just plopping them to the fermenter later. Dried and other processed foods rarely need to be sanitized before being used in fermentation purposes. This of course excludes all raw produce. We are now fast forwarding for your convenience. Once the boil is over and we have the rest of the ingredients ready to go, we get our mixing pot ready, as we kill the heat to the hot plate, and give the Erlenmeyer flask a quick ice bath off camera. With all the ingredients prepped now, we can start mixing this concoction into our 1 gallon vessel. We will start with the peach juice. It is important that you use peach juice that does not contain any potassium metabisulfite or other stabilizers which could inhibit the growth of your yeast. If Phil was following an actual recipe, he would know exactly how much juice to put in ahead of time. But because he's playing it by ear, he gets it completely locked in by chance. Which it only goes over once the physical matter of the raisins and peaches are added. Now that a bulk of the heat is gone from the Erlenmeyer flask, and our mixing bowl has plenty of other liquids to absorb the heat if any remains, we now add the sugar solution, along with the raisins contained within. Although if done more properly, this is where he would have added the raisins normally. But hey, making wine at home is supposed to be a fun and entertaining hobby, not something that you get tied up with all the details all the time. So remember to relax and fill in the blank. As long as you're having fun and doing things safely, everything's alright. And to top off this peach wine, we're going to add some actual frozen peach slices, about 1 pound. We're just going to throw those directly in and let the yeast do its own magic on it. And before you bite our heads off in the comments about using frozen peaches, I would like to point out that this video was recorded in the middle of winter in Michigan. There aren't a lot of fruit stands open right now. But with all the ingredients added to the mixing pitcher, we now add them to the fermenter. You might be asking why Phil did it this way. That's because the mixing pitcher has a blue line that marks where exactly 1 gallon is, whereas the fermenter does not. We're going to fast forward real quick as Phil gets the equipment ready to take a quick temperature reading to make sure that we are below 90 degrees Fahrenheit. This will ensure that our yeast has a safe environment to multiply and prosper. Next, Phil is going to take a gravity reading using a syringe and a refractometer. This helps minimize any loss due to scientific testing, as when dealing with only 1 gallon of wine, we are lucky to get 4 to 5 bottles total. That is to say, 4 to 5 750 milliliter bottles. After Phil uses the small amount from the syringe to wet the plate, he then holds it up to his eye and to a light source. Unfortunately, we do not have any good footage of what it looks like through a refractometer. If you found that your wine had too high of a starting gravity, this is where you would add juice or water to bring the concentration down. Because Phil is happy with his current level of gravity, he is ready to pitch the yeast. He is using what he likes to call the green package, because none of us really want to embarrass ourselves by pronouncing it wrong. Before finishing off the day, Phil decides to give it one last stir with his immersion stick for some reason. He should have actually done this right before adding the yeast. Although he'll probably say it's because the yeast was sitting on top of the frozen peach slices on top. We now put this to room temperature to ferment, about 75 degrees Fahrenheit, for about 2 to 3 weeks before we do a transfer. After that, you treat it just like any other wine kit. Please check out our other videos to see what to do next.